Hello, and welcome to the Barcoding Huddle. I'm your host, Jody Costa, the VP of Marketing and Strategic Partnerships at Barcoding Incorporated. Barcoding is a supply chain automation and innovation company dedicated to helping organizations like yours be more efficient, accurate, and connected. And today, I'm very excited to bring two new friends on camera with me today to talk about elevating warehouse worker productivity and finding really great ways to improve that overall end user experience. So would my special guests please join me on camera, and we are gonna get started. Thank you. Welcome, Ed. Welcome, Aaron.
How you doing?
Good morning. So I have been doing these huddles for quite some time, but this is a very first for me because Barcoding recently acquired a company called Procensus Inc., where Ed and Aaron had built this business up. And this just has happened. It's for hot off the presses. So we made this acquisition to make sure that we could support our growing customer base in enterprise mobility and managed services, and really specifically to help our joint customers help their users have a better experience. So at Procensus, they have over 25 years of warehouse distribution, logistics, and warehouse management system experience. They help drive those end user experiences. They focus on effective user workflows in distribution and manufacturing, and really giving mobile workers and pickers more speed and accuracy, in addition to kind of giving those companies faster onboarding and improved worker safety. A great history of doing incredible work for some very large companies. We at Barcoding couldn't be more excited to have you into the fold as part of the Barcoding team now. So Barcoding, and Procensus are now a joint combination company. So we're really excited to dive into this topic. And I thought, just to kind of kick things off, maybe a couple introductions. So Ed, would you please give us a little bit about who you are, your experience, and maybe where you're coming to us today from?
Sure, absolutely. So my name is Ed Kennedy. I am now the Vice President of Customer Enablement, focused on sales. I live outside of Philadelphia, and as you said, I've been in this industry since 1995. So almost all my focus has been in logistics operations.
It's awesome. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
Like I said, excited to have you on the team. Aaron.
So myself, been in the industry a long time, like you said, mostly from an engineering technical background. I started off as an electronic tech working on handheld equipment back in the day for a company called Norand, and have kind of like worked my way through as to where now I'm with Barcoding as the VP of UI enablement on the engineering side. So, and really customer focusing on, what can we do to extend the normal tool sets that we use to really help users improve their efficiencies and to kind of have more fun doing what they're doing.
Love it. Well, I know that I don't want to waste any more time with my rambling intros. You guys know who I am because I've been doing these for a while. So let's get right into it. At Barcoding, I've done a little research, and what we've seen also in our customer base is something that's very familiar to everybody. We cannot find enough people, right? So FreightWave's 73% of warehouse operators can't find enough labor. That was from 2022. Don't think it's gotten any better. In fact, I know it's not gotten any better. Looking for ways to recruit and retain workers, I think, is one of the core challenges for warehouses and DCs today. And I'm assuming that that's exactly what you all are seeing as well.
Absolutely.
In your area. So talk to me a little bit more about this pressure and what it's doing at the warehouse and distribution center.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. And I think a lot what is driving it is the workforce, the talent they have to work with these days, right? They are much more educated. They're not afraid, So, I mean, just to give you some statistics, by 2025, 75% of the workforce is going to be millennials. Right behind there is Gen Z, which a lot refer to as the YouTube generation, right? So they're not afraid of technology. They want to embrace it. And quite honestly, if someone in a position above them says, well, we don't do that here, or that's not possible, they're not going to listen, because they know it's available. So more and more than ever, we see operations are absolutely listening to their employees. It shows they care, right? And we know with these generations, that's critical, right? And then two, as you said, as Aaron just alluded to earlier, is if that's what they're going to do all day, they also want it to be fun, right? And so we'll get into that, I'm sure, a little bit later when we talk about things like gamification.
Oh yeah. Well, I actually pulled a stat too. Right now, the demographics that I found on Zippia, average age of an employed warehouse worker is 37 years old. So squarely in that millennial segment. So it's happening. It's here. The time is now.
It is. When Aaron and I started doing this stuff with real time, what people used to refer to as RF technology in the 90s, right? And we would walk into operation, they say, I'm sorry, you're going to put a computer in these people's hands? You got to be kidding. So back in the 90s, when we had to try to convince people what real time meant, and we had to use RF, meaning radio frequency. Now today, it's all about mobility. We don't even say those type of words any longer.
Yes, although they still are hanging around. I still hear that RF hanging around.
Then get us in those operations for sure. So.
Well, one of the things that I'm a little passionate about, and I'd love to hear Aaron's take on this. So we talk about millennials and Gen Z, and certainly there's components to those generational groups coming up that we need to pay attention to. But I kind of think from an assumption basis, like people at any age have changed, right? Because of the way that we interact with technology in our personal lives. Would you agree with that, Aaron?
Absolutely. I mean, especially with the advent of the portable devices, as far as having a phone in your hand that's a keyboardless device. I mean, it used to be that everything had a keyboard. Now people are very used to using their thumbs, using touch screen keyboards and so forth. And so carrying that over into warehouse and distribution systems, even with old legacy systems, has become more of a desire and a want to have, because people are even my age on down, all have use these types of devices and are very used to them.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the case to be made is, preparing for the future is also good for your current employees, right? So I think that's one of the reasons I'm most excited about the expertise that you two and all the rest of the end user enablement team are bringing to the table. So let's talk a little bit more. So we've kind of touched upon some of the macro elements, but really, if I'm sitting in the director of warehousing or a COO space, talk to me a little bit more about why I really should focus on my individual workers.
Well, I mean, first and foremost is hiring is one thing and retaining is another. Therefore, the focus does need to be on that individual, especially if you're in a location where you're in like a distribution center park, where there's 10, 30 different distribution centers where everyone's fighting for that that same pool of people, right? So back in the 90s into the early 2000s, companies focused on better benefits, maybe cafeteria services, maybe outside having a field for sports and things like that. Nowadays, that's not what today's mobile user is all about. They are all there for one main reason, and that is A, to make money, B, if they know what their labor standard and there's an opportunity to exceed it, they want to do that because they specifically ask, why am I here? What do I got to do? And how do I make more?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. And I'm assuming, Aaron, that sometimes you guys see that maybe you have to bring that to the table because maybe there's a disconnect between management and what the actual experiences of the person on the floor are. Have you?
Yeah, we see that all the time. Absolutely. That's a very common thread that runs through a lot of the work that we do.
Yeah. Has there ever been a time where someone's been very surprised when they kind of start to dive into that experience on the floor?
I don't know about surprised, more or less happy. I mean, that's the term. As a matter of fact, one of a project that we're working on currently, the number one thing that the response is that they're happy, and it's especially with a difficult, very difficult work work environment, difficult group to work with, and they said they've never been happy. And with these improvements that we've done, they're like happy to use it, and that's like unheard of. And that's the thing that's exciting, and that's the thing that we enjoy the most, is to see that excitement and that happiness.
Just to add that, and Aaron, you probably remember this. It was a couple of years ago. We did a project, and when we did kind of the assessment with the the VP level, her words were this: the users felt it was like Christmas. So I was thinking, oh, they got new equipment. She goes, no. She goes, what they really meant was when you're a kid and you ask for something for Christmas and you actually get what you wanted, that's what they meant. And so Aaron's absolutely correct. The users drove this project. They pushed back on the organization because what they felt they were given as the tools, it made absolutely no sense to them.
Oh, that's awesome. And I love that, where they felt heard. And I think that's probably the strongest factor for some, from a lot of us to feel like we are committed to a company, right? If we're not heard and we're not given the right tools to do our job, we're not going to stay. So let's talk specifically about what are we talking about when we talk about specific solutions that really help, and what are we honing in on? So let's take a look. I'm your traditional warehouse worker, and you can break it down by workflow if you like, but what are we talking about in terms of where do you start? What are the pieces?
Sure. So if you think about pre-pandemic and then during the pandemic, if you weren't in the e-commerce business, well, you fastly became into it, right? So in the days of the past where you're picking full pallet and shipping full pallet, that world has changed, right? So what does that mean? Automation is now in these distribution centers for obvious reasons, but in where the value-added services, especially say in the picking or complex picking, where you're picking up different sizes, you're picking in different environments, could be freezer environment, it could be dry goods, etc. You're working with a human element, a human labor there, right? So therefore, as you can probably see where I'm going, it's hands-free, right? So hands-free type of technology. And hands-free doesn't mean simply something I might wear on my arm or my wrist, but it also can be voice, or it can be heads-up display type technology as well.
So I got to have my hands ready to do my job, and I need technology that's going to enable me to be able to do that, right?
Right.
So we were talking wearables. I'm assuming there's been a huge increase in that, and then the interface, right, with the software, and potentially voice. I'm assuming would also come into play in a hands-free environment.
And voice has been around for a long period of time. Voice is evolving, right? Because in some of these operations, it's really about one thing, wherever it's human, right? Is how do I get two people to do the work of three and like it, right? And so really like it. They gotta like.
I think that's what we do at barcoding. Like, how about you guys?
Well, sure, right? So we want them to work faster, but when you work faster, it opens the opportunity for errors. So what has happened in these voice operations, they're bringing scanning back in to more involved, right? So we refer to visual voice scan. That's what we refer to when we're talking about voice technology, because we believe all three elements are critical. The users like it, okay? It's easy to adopt and onboard, and at the same time, the company likes it because they're getting faster workers, but they're keeping the accuracy. Love
it. So I think that probably where people might go wrong is they might say, all right, well, I'll get some wearables and I'll get some mobile technology, and I'll just, add my WMS and off I go. So Aaron, talk to me a little bit about maybe that current state of the mobile interface experience for those warehouse workers, because it's not that simple, right?
No, but one of the things that's really great is to finally have hardware these days that allows us to be able to do these cool innovations, where it used to be that your traditional green screen WMS could run on the lowest hardware denomination. I mean, you didn't need a lot of horsepower to make that work. But nowadays, in order to do a better UI, what's great about the products that we use and the platform that we work with is that we're able to take the traditional green screen and turn that into a really nice web-based user interface that looks and feels more along the lines of something that they're used to using with the device. And what's great about that is that we can layer all these other things on top of it. You can put the voice on top of it. You can do scanning. You can do, the hands-free type of technology as well, so that you can move the user away from the device and more to what they're actually doing, and more of a guided and directed way, whether it's using the, voice guided and voice directed, or whether you're using something on the back of your hand that has a display that can just give you enough information to do what you need to do right at that very moment, so that you don't have to go run back to the display of the device and worry about that. Now you're finding that we're able to push that onto a cradle, onto a, whether it's a fork truck or a cart or some other type of holder, and then they can walk away and do whatever it is that they need to do without the encumbrance of the hardware itself. So there's some really cool things that can be done with upgrading the user experience by creating a user interface that's more suited to what they're doing right at that moment.
Oh, I love that. And I love how everything, you kind of have to think of everything holistically. Ed.
And Jody, just to add to that, we even have the ability to do that even beyond green screen. So if someone's on a more modern WMS that has a browser interface, we have the ability to not only to enhance that user experience to be more of a UI in line of what they would expect, but sometimes we can take 3 to 4 screens, collapse it down to maybe 1 to 2 screens. We can remove things that don't need to be there, because again, we always focus on we love to focus from the user perspective, meaning if it doesn't make sense, then why show it, right? So we hide things when they don't necessarily need to be. We can make things larger, different colors, etc. Why? Because as Aaron said, it's all about what they're used to using in their personal lives, and where there's such amazing UIs out there for personal shopping, etc. They expect that if I'm given something of the same form factor, it should be the same.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Well, and everybody's had that, on that I'm on my phone trying to buy something, horrible e-commerce experience where you've got the tiny little thing that you're typing into, and it doesn't pull up the nice number keyboard, and all the things that we experience in regular life that frustrate us.
But you said something very key there, that and it started off the comment. It's not as easy as you think, and then sometimes it takes more out of box thinking. So for example, there are a lot of companies out there who think, okay, I can take, I get the UI component, sure, maybe I can make a nice keyboard, still keep an older UI. I can get some type of a case, put the computer on it, right? But is that creating a better user experience? And what we have seen sometimes is it's not. It's in fact, sometimes it's making things even too small for them. So where I'm going with that is, it's not only that purpose-built equipment does play a role, but also there are times that when some of these ERPs that have a WMS component, they're very, very complex, and trying to get that down to maybe a real small screen is not in the best interest of the users, right? So therefore, at times, we can create dynamic type screens that the user does not have to suffer. So in other words, we can, when it's time for the keypad to be there, we display the right size keyboard and only the keys that make sense. If it's a field that doesn't require a keyboard, then don't show it. So again, we cannot emphasize enough, it's about the users, right? We're hitting all the IT requirements. Obviously, those are pretty straightforward, but you really have to focus on the users, because if they don't like it, they don't embrace it, and then more importantly, they will leave.
I'm assuming because people are people, and what we're talking about are people, getting your users involved early into these conversations to challenge any assumptions that the organization might be making, or to really capture all of the challenges that they're facing, is vital. Would you agree with that, Aaron?
Yeah, matter of fact, that it kind of leads into another big piece of what all this can do, and that is process automation or process improvement. I mean, that's one of the great things that users are really good at giving us feedback on, is saying, for example, hey, this message always comes up after I do this process, and I always have to acknowledge it. Can't we just auto acknowledge this message? Well, to do that on a WMS would require involving consultants, programmers, things like that. There's a cost, there's time involved, and it could be a whole big project all of its own. But that might be something that might take us, half an hour to accomplish and test and make sure it works. And boom, now it's no longer an issue for all the users. And we do all those types of little process automations, process improvements. Hey, I need to, if I'm in this process, I need to once in a while, I've got to change something. For example, I'm picking and I need to put something away to move something from one location to another real quick, but it takes me 10 steps to get there. Can I just have a button on this screen that takes me right where I need to go? And we can add that. We can do those types of things to make it so much easier to take steps away from what they have to do to make it, hey, you need to do something from here and make it nice and quick and easy. Then let's go ahead and do that.
It's so interesting because there's all these other solutions that barcoding gets into, right? With mobile power carts and AGVs and AMRs, where we're removing physical steps, right? And here we're talking about steps within a piece of software, but the same premise, right? Why have unnecessary steps that are only going to cause frustration or lack of time or, any of those things. So that's really, really cool. And I love that honing in on the users and getting that feedback and getting them staked in. Ed, I'm assuming that's a very critical component of how you approach a project like this.
Absolutely. And just to kind of continue what you were saying there in terms of AMRs, it's very, very interesting. The real purpose, obviously, of the AMR is the travel time to bring whatever's been picked back to packing, right?
Right.
And so what is interesting, though, is that we've had the opportunity in the last couple of weeks to go out on, to some customer visits and where we've seen some AMRs in operation. And what is crazy, that even though that's the purpose of the AMR, but the interaction of the AMR on their kiosks with some of these systems still require multiple steps. And that what we do in terms of wearable technology is we can, in some cases, take that UI and kind of combine in what we're doing to eliminate those extra steps. So for example, there's a particular device made by a company called ProGlove that has a trigger, and the trigger is the purpose to make a scan, but it also has some automation that you can do what's called a double tap to execute a command. So when I watch this AMR, that after the user picked and fulfilled it into the bin, yes, they followed the green light, that's where they put it in so they don't make the mistake. They literally had to touch there was 3 to 4 steps still on the AMR that we could have eliminated. So where I'm going at is, I think as AMRs become more widely adopted, don't be surprised that the kiosks might eventually lead, and that wearables will complement and work side by side with the AMRs.
Right.
Yeah, well, and that is getting back to the heart of this, right? Because you cannot have digital transformation without people. Period, right? The technology and the people combination is never really going to go away. Well, at least not right now. So I think when we think about, and that's also great, what's great is that having you guys as part of the barcoding team, Presensus now being part of barcoding brings this whole level of deep experience and expertise in end user enablement and productivity, and where that goes could be in any number of directions, right? And I think that's what you're exploring there on the AMR side. It's, hey, all this stuff has to work together. Ultimately, it has to work together for the goals of the business, but we still need people. And in order for us to keep those people in a tight labor market, this stuff has to work together and has to make those users happy, as Aaron mentioned. So we've talked through a lot of different things. I want to talk a little bit more about some specifics. So I would love to dive into some examples, if you guys don't mind sharing.
Sure.
For the barcoding, customers who may be watching. If I am a warehouse or a distribution center and I want to start to dive into this, could you give me some illustrations of maybe where it's worked in other places, or areas, what I can expect from an ROI perspective?
So let's take, for example, maybe the beverage space. Okay, so in that particular industry, they're lifting heavy cases, right? Mm-hmm. And they're of various different sizes. And so typically what they're doing is they're building what's called a mixed pallet. So they need both hands. So in those type of operations, that in a high volume facility, that might have been a voice operation where they were using the older voice system where it was just a headset and they wear maybe a computer on their hip, right? Mm-hmm. But they're not doing any scanning, that type of operation. Or they're using a traditional handheld, like you call the brick on the stick, right? They pick up, they put down. So in that type of operation, and if they were using the ladder, the brick on a stick, we are seeing upwards of 20, from anywhere from 18 to 22% process improvement, and even introducing scanning. Okay. And if they want to get down to scan every case, we're still seeing those type speeds. And why are we seeing that? Is because of the full, completely hands-free, right? And then also applying some level of automation that allows them to pick from both sides of the aisle, to get away from the mobile device and just maybe use something that has a small UI on their hand that's not much bigger than what's on my wrist right today, this watch, right? So the user experience is exceptional because it's lightweight what they have. They know they can pick faster, and they understand the business wanting them to scan. So it's an excellent area where, those type clients that are in similar type operations can see a huge ROI. So traditionally, we go right to picking because obviously that's, a key function and usually the most challenges.
Aaron, do you have any examples you'd like to share? I don't want to put you on the spot.
Just picking off the beverage industry again. I mean, because this is a kind of a more recent thing. For example, one of the scenarios that we were given was, hey, we had this situation where the user comes in, they scan a location, and we're required to scan the UPC of the item, but it's a full case, so there's no singles there. So they actually have to cut open a case, pull out a bottle, scan the bottle, put the bottle back in the case, tape it back up, and then they can pick the bottle. What they asked was, can we just scan the location a second time if we know, because they're incentivized to be accurate. So they're not going to say something's there if it isn't. If we know that the right product is in the location and we're at the right location, can't we just scan the location again and have it look up the UPC and put the UPC in the field for us automatically? And so that was a challenge to look at without having to go back and do anything against the WMS or anything like that. We were able to leverage the fact that there was a detail screen. So literally what happens is that if the user moves into a location, they can scan, and they have to scan the UPC and they don't have a single to scan, they can just scan the location again, it automatically, and this all very quickly, the user doesn't even see it, pops up the detail screen, looks up the location, grabs the UPC next to the location, and then turns around, inputs it into the field all in one scan. So they're scanning the user bin field, but it literally puts the UPC into it for them. Saves them anywhere between 1 to 3 minutes every time they do that.
Whoa.
So talk about a process improvement. Yeah, and that was something that no one else could do for them, but yet we were able to do that very easily just by understanding and having the users explain to us, what is your pain? What is the thing that is keeping you from reaching your goals? Because they're incentivized by every single scan. So they get paid by every item they pick. And so that just saved them, that just helped them make more money. And so that's the kind of user improvements and the things that help make them happy, because now I've taken something that was annoying and caused them to lose time, and now it's something that is fully automated. And nothing to do with the back end.
And Jody, just to add to that once in that type of project, the operations now flow and everything's working really good, that is a great operation to go back into what we can also now is what we refer to as gamification, right? So and where does that term come from? Obviously, with all these generations that play the video games of things like the Call of Duties and others, they're very familiar with real-time labor statistics. So when we walk in operations and they have the big boards up, they might be by the shipping office, they might be receiving. They don't know how well they're doing. What do they want? They want to know how well they're doing right then and there, right? Because we all know as time goes on in these type of operations where they're lifting a lot, they can develop fatigue. But if they knew how well they're doing, then they'll continue. So we have the ability to show real-time gamification right on the mobile device. And we can even take it as far as if they're not working fast enough, we can make the device beep different colors to them to keep them going. Yeah. And the exciting thing is that we're taking it to now a leaderboard. So what the real benefit is, this was driven from the users wanting something like this, right? This wasn't really like, hey, this is our idea. It's the users explaining that to us. And so we don't need clients to have a labor management system, because a labor management system it has a whole other purpose. Think about this as more of a rewards type system. So it's very simple to implement. Okay, we can implement it on any WMS that's either a browser that gives a UI that's either a browser based or what we talked about earlier, the traditional green screen. We can introduce that capability right onto the mobile device.
Yeah, maybe because I'm not a video gamer, but I am a very competitive person. I totally get the incentive program, and I think that ties right back into where we started in terms of labor retention. Obviously, retain labor, it's your most profitable way to move forward, especially in today's climate. But I love the idea that if I'm showing up to work, I have some control and maybe some bonuses that I might have on the table if I really want to work hard and go out and get them. I think a lot of people would respond to having those pathways of, what can I do to kind of make more money here while I'm here. I think that's
Absolutely.
a brilliant thing.
Yeah, and that's
Again, right away you're focusing on labor retention, because how do you get two people to do the work of three? And if you can see those type of improvements, they'll like it. They love it, because who doesn't want to make more money, right?
Right. I mean, I think maybe I just need to do more huddles. I'm incent me to do more huddles. Aaron, I think you were gonna tag in for a little bit.
No, I was going to say that, just talking about again, it's all about the user, right? So that real-time statistics really helps them understand, where they're at, so they can understand what their expectations are going to be as far as, what their pay is and so forth. But a lot of it has to do, again, with being able to also, the other side of that is that we can do so many more things. Like, for example, we can give management information on how long did they spend on a specific screen. Maybe there's some process improvements that really need to be looked at to say, hey, these are all the screens that they're running through, but these are the ones where they're spending the most time just sitting there doing nothing. Like this is the longest dwell time. And why is that? Is there a process problem? Is it because there's some environmental thing that gets in the way that stops them? Is it because they're moving having to go too far to go from one location to another? There's all these things that you can then grab out of the device, because with this UI automation that we're doing, or this UI improvement that we're doing, it gives us access to the actual screens by screen, everything that the user is actually doing. So yes, there are manufacturers that have systems that allow you to track the device, how the battery level, how many scans you've done, things like that. But now we're talking about things that traditionally you don't really have access to, that we can provide as far as data goes to management. And that is, what are they actually doing? How long does it actually take to complete a pick? How long does it actually take to get from point A to point B, and those types of things. So now we can kind of help plug in information into systems to help them make better improvements overall.
Oh, it's so good. And data, data's king, right? But I always think about barcoding's approach, right? We always say we start with process and people first before we move into technology. And what I was thinking, though, when you were talking, yes, we do have mechanisms for managing device health, right? So one of the strengths of barcoding is our services that we bring to the table. So the hardware itself, right, has health characteristics that we have to manage and life cycles and all that. But what about our processes, right? Those have health characteristics and life cycles, and our people, right? And so I just love how this combination of, our new combined team is going to be able to bring all of that to the table for our customers. I just think it's a brand new day out there.
It's exciting. We can take it to such a greater level of help for our end users and our customers.
Yes, agreed. Well, I wanted to kind of open up a little bit where, we're kind of coming to the close, where we think we're going to go. So there was a couple tidbits, right? We talked a little bit about AMRs, but overall, do you guys have a sense, especially now being part of the barcoding community, and maybe I'll start with you. What do you think the future holds now for us and for our customers in terms of end user enablement? I mean, to me, we should not be satisfied anymore with the status quo. Like that's a given.
Absolutely. What we want to do is absolutely go into a lot of these accounts and to be proactive, because everything we talked about today, these are the real challenges all customers are facing, right? And so we want to be able to go into those accounts and let the customers know that we have these capabilities, and we're much more than the ability to make something on the arm. We're much more of a company that can create a better UI experience. What we're really doing, the real value is pretty much everything that Aaron has said, right? We solve real business problems and challenges, right? How they're doing it one way could actually be done a different way through the use of automation, and maybe just taking a deeper dive in their existing WMS and saying, hey, you realize this? We can do this for you outside the WMS, because most WMS companies don't like to take on little projects. They like to do the big implementation and just kind of do the support. And I think what we're seeing out there is clients see that right away and they embrace it. And before you know it, we might have been only focused on picking. They're now bringing us into the put away, the receiving, and other business processes on the floor that we can help as well.
Love it. Aaron, anything on your side that you want to add?
Well, I mean, to me, as far as future tech, I mean, I'm always looking at it from a technical perspective, right? I mean, what I'm excited about is that battery technology is getting better. So we're starting to see better wearable technology. Eventually, I think that, we're going to move more into, not only as a convergence of different technologies, but also I think probably more of the heads-up display type of thing will become making a comeback at some point, really with augmented reality type of scenarios where, I think the end goal that they're looking to get to, at least in I think before the end of my career, I'm hoping to see that in reality. And that is, literally a user has a heads-up display and they're given their next pick. And as they're walking to the location, as soon as it sees it, it's constantly reading barcodes, the camera, and then it shows them, highlights in green, that this is the location that you want to go to because it's found that barcode. Then you literally hold up the device that you want to, the barcode of the device or the item that you're picking or you're putting away or whatever it is that you're doing, and then it confirms it right then and there. So really kind of getting away from having that traditional handheld device and taking advantage more of augmented reality. But we're a little ways from that from a hardware perspective, but we're starting to see this convergence of all the different types of technologies. So the wearable tech, the hip-based tech, the mountable, the AMRs, all these different pieces now are starting to converge, where you're starting to see an integration of those different things down to the end user. I mean, that's one of the most exciting things that we've done is literally enabling the user from a mobile device, injecting an interface into their existing WMS. So it looks like it's part of the WMS, but it's the ability to control AMRs directly from the handheld device and not having to go through another system.
That's awesome. Well, I feel like this combination, this holistic view, this is so spot on for what I'm super excited about. Now, any of you guys watching, you have one place, one company you can turn to for all of the great worker productivity strategies that we've been talking about today, for the hardware itself, for all of the managed services on that hardware, for all of the different asset tracking needs, for digitization of assets and RFID traceability tagging mandates, for labels and printers and this all now, AMRs, AGVs, this is all within one ecosystem that is barcoding. And I'm very excited because you guys bring such a strength because at the end of the day, if we aren't able to provide that end user experience, then the technology really isn't worth it, right? It's not doing its job, right? Because the people can't do their job. So
we're really excited for our customers, where we have done we worked in one particular swim lane and we've done a great job, and now they see the breadth of solutions barcoding brings. And they're already talking with the organization now about some of those things you touched on. So it's certainly been a win-win for, it's only been a couple of weeks. So it's been exciting for all of our customers.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, I would be remiss if I didn't put you guys a little bit on the spot. Trying to think of my favorite. So I usually ask people a question at the end that's just a little bit a little bit funky. Aaron already gave me his kind of dream vision state of the future, so I won't go there. Are you guys, have you ever done any sort of like laser tag or anything like that? Are you champion at video games or laser tag at all? Because this is kind of what I'm like, where my brain is right now.
I'm not a video game person, but
No?
laser tag, no. My boys were, of course, but laser tag was absolutely a lot of fun. So stuff like that, yes.
That's what I imagine now in the warehouses.
Aaron might be a gamer, but I wasn't a gamer.
I actually, I'm too obsessive when it comes to gaming, so I have to keep my distance. So I'm not allowed to play games with my kids because I get way too competitive.
You're like, I'll take you down.
It's that hyper focusedness that I get, but I'm actually more of an outdoorsman myself. Like I like do a lot of outdoor stuff, and
Yeah.
When my boys were growing up, I did a lot of stuff with scouting and so forth. But
Oh, cool.
do like a lot of camping and outdoors type stuff. So
I love it. I love it. Well, there's going to be a lot more to come from ProCensus, former ProCensus team. We welcome you to Team Barcoding. Thanks for participating on this huddle. And I think from everything you've said, I mean, to me, the future is absolutely efficient, accurate, and connected. We cannot wait to speak with you. I think one thing that's clear is that these guys have the chops. So if you have a challenge, bring it. Bring us your challenges. Bring them forth. We would love to work with you on anything that your users are really just constantly coming back to you and saying, this is just so frustrating or annoying. We want to take away those annoyances for you, right?
absolutely.
Absolutely agree.
Awesome. Well, thank you both so much for your time today. As always, if you love this content and things like it, follow us on YouTube and follow us and subscribe and do all those great things because we want you to stay informed. If you want to learn more or you want to reach out, you can go to barcoding.com. You can also still go to procensus.com. So either pathway works for us and we'll get right to you and get going. But eventually, barcoding.com, and we cannot wait. Bring us your challenges. Let us help your users, and let's all have a really great experience in those warehouses and distribution centers. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity.
Thanks, Jody.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.